Hello, and welcome to our pre-recorded video for our promotion that is happening this weekend through our online store. And we are featuring the Lighthouse Die from Waffle Flower. And you can earn it free with a $75 purchase before tax and after any discounts. And I'm here to give you some inspiration and show you how you can use this amazing die. So I went ahead and I cut out a bunch of pieces ahead of time to experiment with the lighthouse itself. So you can do it in lots of different color combinations. I chose to do a yellow background, and that's going to allow the windows and this area right up here to remain yellow after I layer all the pieces on. And I just kind of thought that sort of gave the illusion of a light on inside the lighthouse. So that is the route that I took with it. But you can go with a white background and you can layer like red stripes on top. You can do any color combination that you want. But I'm going to go with the yellow for this particular video. Now I'm going to just focus here on the lighthouse and show you what the finished card is going to look like. And we have an added feature on this card. This is something that I've been wanting to try for a very long time. I've seen it used many, many times, but there's always that intimidation factor. And I dove in and I did it, and it is super fun and super easy. Also, I am going to make a few changes to the card. So the card that you see here, the general layout will be the same, but I am going to make a few modifications as I go through this. So you can see how I make some changes as I go. But here's the cool wow factor. So if I push where it says push here, we get the light. Isn't that the coolest thing ever? And that is using a product from Pearblossom Press called One Light. And I'm going to show you how to use it and how to install it and how easy it is to add to your cards. So anytime that you want a light or an interactive feature like this, you can install one of these into your cards, and wow, like so much fun. You can even use them on layouts as well. So we'll set the card aside and we're going to get busy working on the assembly of the lighthouse. Okay, so you can see here now that I've got all of my pieces sort of lined up here to go ahead and adhere to the lighthouse. And it's really, really easy to do. I'm just going to grab my tweezers here. So basically, you're going to take your pieces, and the base of the lighthouse is kind of like the base of a puzzle, and all of the pieces just slot right in, and there are little lines on there to kind of guide you. So you can see there that that little piece at the bottom with the lighthouse door just fits there, and then the next piece will just layer right on top of that, and they just sort of notch together like a little puzzle, and you just follow it all the way up to the top of the lighthouse. Now I'm going to be using my glue press and liquid glue to stick this down. I think this is the easiest way to go about it. But you could use regular adhesive and just kind of cover your panel. You do want to make sure that you don't get any adhesive in these areas here where the little windows are. So those 4 windows and this window here, plus the little yellow piece on the top, are going to remain exposed. So if you do decide to cover everything with adhesive, just make sure that you leave those openings without adhesive on them so that they don't ruin the overall look of your lighthouse. So I'm going to begin assembling my lighthouse, and I'll be back in a minute to show you it finished. Oh. Okay, so now I've got the lighthouse all assembled, and you can see how awesome it looks. I did use some metallic paper to do the door and some of the trim at the top of the lighthouse. And then again, yellow, navy blue, and white for the rest. So the next step on my card is I want to get all the elements ready first. So the next thing is going to be to get this anchor ready. Now this anchor is from an older set that I had in my stash. I didn't even know I really had an anchor, but I went looking through the things that I do have, and I came across this set here. And this is a combination of a couple of sets, but it is the underwater tunnel set. And you can see that I've got this great anchor right here So I've decided I'm going to use that on this project as well. So I cut it out in a light gray cardstock, and on my card, I tied a little bit of black and white twine just in a knot along the top. So I'm going to get that piece ready now as well. So I've got my roll of black and white twine. I'm just going to cut a piece off, and I am just going to loop it through the top of the anchor. Now this piece is much longer than I actually need it, but I do find having a little extra length on there is helpful. Now we do sell black and white twine by the yard. It's a minimum of 2 yards, and then I think you can order 5-yard lengths or 10-yard lengths as well. So if you don't have any of this black and white twine in your stash, make sure you pick some up, because it's just a nice little accent to use on embellishments and tags and things like that. So I'm just tying a knot, and then I'm just sort of sliding the knot down before I tighten it right up, just so I have a little bit of a loop there, not too much. And then I'm just going to trim off a bit of the thread below the loop so that it just kind of hangs off there. And then I can position that on my card when I'm ready to assemble. So that's how you do the anchor. So now we've got the lighthouse and the anchor. So the anchor is going to kind of go like, like this across my lighthouse, something similar to that, which gives you this sort of look. Okay. All right, next up, we are going to create this circle element that you see on the background of the card. And I think that just kind of it just kind of draws your eye into the whole cluster of embellishments here. And I really love how that looks. So on this card, I just did a single layer. I did have a set of circles that I had cut out and stacked just to give it a bit of dimension. I ended up not using it on this card, but I think I'm going to try it on this version of the card. But if not, I do have some backups here that I have just cut single stitched circle frames. Now this die is from Lawn Fawn, and it is the stitched circle frame die. So you get 4 different size frames, and frames are a really handy thing to have in your stash. So if you don't have a good set of frames, they don't have to be circles, but I think in this particular case, I really like how the circle looks. But yeah, definitely look into frames, because I think they offer a lot of opportunities to create focal points on your card. So I do have a set that I have glued together and stacked. I think I have 3 frames stacked there. That will give me a little bit of dimension. But like I said, I do have some backup circles just in case I just want to use a single layer. Okay, so that was the next element to have done. So that is ready to go. Okay, so the next element we are going to work on is this wave and rock cluster that we've got going on, plus this little band of sand at the bottom. So that is created with another Waffle Flower die that was just released, and it is called, oops, pull everything out here. It is called the Coastline Die and Stencil. Now this is a pretty spectacular little tool. So it will create this coastline kind of look with this big wave that comes up. There's a little rock in the background, and then it also gives you a separate die that you can create a landscape along the bottom too. So the 2 dies that I think are the coolest are this one here, and then it cuts out all of these little pieces here, and they are the little accent pieces that go on the tops of your waves. So I'm going to go ahead and show you the process with this. I've got this all pre-cut out ahead of time, and this is what it looks like. So here is the big sort of wave and rock cluster. So I've gone ahead and cut that out in white, and then there is a layering stencil that goes over top. And I know the video won't pick this up, but this part up here, it says wave light, and then this part here says wave medium, and then down here it says rock. So I'm going to start with wave light, and you just basically place this right over top of your die cut. It shows you kind of how to line it up. And I'm working on a sticky mat, so my stencil will just stick to that. And that is going to be my lightest color of ink. So I'm using cotton candy from Tailored Expressions, and I'm actually using cotton candy for both layers, both light and medium. I'm just going to apply a little more pressure when I do the medium level. I am going to use my 1-inch Pink Fresh blending brush, my blue one, and I'm just going to pick up some ink. And I'm just going to take some of it off onto my glass mat here because I don't want to go in too harsh. And I'm going to lightly blend over the stencil. And it is very important to go in both directions when you blend. I find especially if you're using these brushes with a stencil, because the way the bristles glide over the stencil edges, they pick up different parts of the ink. So you want to make sure you're going in both directions so you get nice, even coverage. So that's as easy as it is to do the first layer. We're going to peel this off, and you can see that the stencil has masked off all of the areas that it didn't want stenciled in that light color. Then you're just going to move down the stencil and place that on there and line it up. Now you've got some stenciled in areas to help guide you as well. And we're just going to stick that down. Just take an extra minute to make sure you've got it lined up correctly. If I wasn't doing it on the camera, I would pull it down in front of me so I could see a little bit better. But okay, so now we're going to do these a little bit darker. So again, same color ink, just going to pick it up, and I'm going to apply more pressure when I'm blending, and that's going to darken up that ink. But exactly the same color. Again, make sure you swirl in both directions, just so you get good coverage all the way around the stencil. And then we're going to pull that off. And now you can see that you get that variance in your colors between the light and the medium. Okay, and then next up, the next section of the stencil is for the rock. Now, I have a little bit of blue ink on my stencil, so I'm just going to take a microfiber cloth and just wipe some of that off. I'm not going to clean it, just kind of get that blue off of there so that it doesn't transfer over when I'm stenciling the gray. And then you line up the stencil for the rock. Stick that down, and now we're going to just switch up our colors. So now we're going to go, and I'm going to use Oyster from Tailored Expressions. And again, I'm going to come in with a 1-inch blending brush again to start. And there it is. Again, I'm going to go in kind of lightly just to get a base of the gray down. I don't want my rock to be too dark. Like I said, I'm making slight modifications from the original card I made. This is the only step I did the first time I stenciled, but this time I'm going to bring in another blending brush. This is from Waffle Flower, and this is just going to allow me to be a little more targeted with my blending and be able to darken up some of those areas. So same color, and I'm just going to come in along the bottom edge and hit it with ink down there. And that's just going to sort of give some definition and just create some shading. And then the top part, I'm still going to leave light. Okay, so take that off and remove the die cut. And then you can see what that coastal line looks like. Now, I did get a little bit of gray along the bottom of my coastline when I had the stencil on there, but I'm not worried about that. I don't think it's going to really interfere too much. Now, what I'm going to do with those extra die cut pieces that I have cut out is I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to layer those on top of the white spaces that I have here. And I'm going to use some foam adhesive and pop them up. And that's going to give it a little bit of dimension. So you can kind of see on this card how that piece is sort of raised up. And it just kind of helps make that wave look a little bit more realistic. So I'm going to do that off screen, and then I'll be back in a minute. Okay, so I went ahead and I put on those pieces So you can see that there's a little bit of dimension on the front now. I did leave this one off because we're going to be trimming off part of this die cut to make it the width of my panel. And then I also took this die and I cut a piece of craft cardstock just to go along the bottom there. So I may end up trimming this down a little bit on the bottom, but those two pieces are now ready to go for our card front. So next up, we are going to work on, you'll notice in the back, I have that little rectangle that is shaded. I'm going to go ahead and show you how I did that. So to do that, I used a masking stencil. So these are the Tailored Expressions rectangles, masking stencils. And in here, you get two different sizes of rectangles. So the first one is a large rectangle, and that would do obviously a large rectangle on the front of your card. Now, I didn't want the whole panel to end up being a masked rectangle, so I decided to go with a smaller version of this, and it's just going to bring the focal point in a little bit closer. So there are etched lines on here. This is a standard A2 size panel, and I'm just going to quickly line up the etched lines that are on the stencil. I'm just pulling it off here just so I can see what I'm doing. Once I get that lined up, then we are ready to go to stencil our rectangular block right in the middle of our design. Now, when I stenciled it on, I kind of kept the stenciling darker towards the bottom and then faded it out to a lighter part at the top, just kind of like water would be, darker here and then fades out into the sky. But as you can see on my card, we end up covering all of that up anyways, so it doesn't really matter. So you can just do it all in one shade if you want to. If you want to practice your blending skills, you can totally do the blending at the bottom. And I will show you how I do that. So ink up your brush. I'm going to use the 1-inch blending brush again. I like to do that when I'm using it for larger areas because this brush just gives you such a smooth and even blend. And I'm going to start blending actually on the stencil, not on the paper. So just a few of my bristles are going over onto the paper. And you can see how that allows you to kind of hit the edge, but not have a huge impact on your ink. And then slowly, as my ink gets used up on my brush, I start moving up the stencil a little bit. And I even go down and pick up that ink that's on the stencil itself, and you just keep blending. So now you can see how much darker it is at the bottom and how you start to get that natural graduation of color as you go up. Okay, and then each time you add more ink to your brush, start at the bottom and then slowly move up. Like I want to start bringing that ink blend up to the top of my panel, but you can see how gradual that blend is. And a little bit of practice really does go a long way. So I'm going to pick up some more of that ink off my glass mat, just so I can use it all up and just sort of blend up nice and easy. Okay, so that's all there is to using a masking stencil. Masking stencils are a great opportunity to create focal points on your cards. So I'll just remove that, and you can see that we now have a card panel that has that beautiful rectangle right in the center, and it is ready for us to build our scene on. Now, I'm not going to be using this panel as a full size panel, so I'm going to go ahead and cut that down to the size I want it before I go ahead and start creating my scene. So now that we have that centered on our card, we have to make sure that we trim our panel down evenly on all sides so that does remain in the center. So I want my finished panel to measure 3 3/4 by 5. So if I measure this, this is 4 1/4. So I have to come in a full 1/2 inch to get it to 3 3/4. So what I'm going to do is a 1/4 inch on one side and a 1/4 inch on the other. And that will give me even sides to my panel without disrupting that middle section. Okay, so this is going to be the final cut that will take me to 3 3/4. And then I want the same thing from the top and the bottom. So right now it is 5 1/2, and I want my finished measurement to be 5. So I'm going to go in a 1/4 inch and cut off the bottom or top, and then spin it around and do the same thing the other way. And that will bring me down to my 5 inches. So now we have a panel that measures 3 3/4 by 5, whoops, and we have an even border all the way around the front panel. Now I am going to be matting that in this dark navy blue. So again, I have to trim my panel down so that I can fit it in behind, because right now that's a bit too much blue showing for me. So I'm going to take it down so I just have a sliver showing. Now on my original card, I only had the blue showing on the sides. I don't mind that, but I decided on this one I was going to have the blue showing all the way around just for something a little bit different. So I am going to go ahead and take my trimmer, and I'm going to, this is 3 3/4. So I'm going to go to 4 first, and then I'm going to kind of see what that looks like. You can always trim more off, but once you take it off, you can't add it back on. So I always do it kind of in increments. And then this finished measurement is 5 inches this way. So I'm going to go to 5 1/4. And we will take a look at how that looks. So I'm just going to pull these two together. Okay, and that's kind of the thickness of border. And then I do have a card base over here. So that would go on kind of like this. Now, what I'm trying to decide is how much blue I want to have showing. I could even make that a little bit more narrow, which I think I will. So I'm going to pull this off. And I'm just going to take 1/8 of an inch off. Okay, so now I'm going to go 1/8 of an inch this way and 1/8 of an inch this way. And that's just going to make that border just a little slimmer. And I think I'm going to like that more. So let's just line that. Oh yes, see? So that's just a little bit narrower. It's not yelling at us quite as much. And then when we put that on here, we have a little bit more of the white card base showing. But on the difference between my original card and this card is that the blue is going all the way around, and this one just has it on the sides. So just to give you a little bit of a different look and a different idea of how that will appear. Okay, so the last thing we have to do is our sentiment and our push button. So I'm just going to clear my desk, and I'll be back in a second to show you how that works. All right. So this is the sentiment set I'm choosing to use for this card. I loved the sentiment Shine Bright because we've got the little, the light happening there with the lighthouse. So this is a new set from Waffle Flower. It is from their latest release, and it's called Coastal Greetings. So there's lots of different options on here, but you can see that I use the Shine Bright sentiment. So we're just going to get that out here. And the cool thing about the Waffle Flower sentiment sets is, I'm just going to point out, on the sentiment stamps, you'll notice that they have numbers beside them, like 1, 2, 3, and so on. Those numbers correspond with the dies. Sometimes it's really hard to determine which die goes with which sentiment. But if you flip it over on the back, there is a little number that corresponds with the stamp. So it makes it really easy to know which die goes with which stamp. Now, I made a little template ahead of time, and that is this die just cut out of a piece of white cardstock. And I'm going to save that and keep it with this collection because it can help me line up my stamps moving forward as well. There's a couple different ways you can do this, but today I decided to show this version. I've shown other versions in other videos that I've done, but there's the die and the matching stamp. So what we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and get the Misty out here, and we are going to stamp the Shine Bright onto a piece of white cardstock. So I have a piece just sitting over here that I had used before. So I'm just going to put that into my Misty. I'm going to put my stamp down right here. It doesn't really matter where you put it. Doesn't matter if it's lined up. You just put it on there. And then I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to stamp that with some black ink. So I'm using the VersaFine Clair Nocturne. It's my favorite dark black ink that I like to use when I'm stamping sentiments. I use it for other things too, but I really like it for stamping sentiments. So I'm just going to stamp that down there. It doesn't even have to be a perfect stamp either, because we're not going to use this. What I'm going to do now is I'm going to bring over my little template, and I'm going to line this up around my stamped image. Now you would think with this, because you can see there's a lot of white space around this, that it would be very easy to line up, but sometimes you think you've got it lined up and you don't. So I'm just going to take some Post-it tape. I'm just going to hold that in place. And then I'm going to go ahead and insert a shadow die piece that I've already cut out. So I actually cut out 3 of them. And this particular set is really cool because if you look closely, there is a pierced design around the outer edge of your die. So we're just going to pop that in there. Now, if for some reason we don't have this sentiment completely lined up, like the little template around there, if it isn't lined up completely, don't worry, because we've got 2 more tries. And we're going to use all of these pieces in the end anyways. So basically right now I can stamp it 3 times and pick the best one. But you can always cut out more too. So I'm just going to ink up that piece again. And we're going to go ahead and close the door. And I'm going to use my smoosher and just push that down. And okay, lifted it right up. That's okay. We're going to grab our tweezers. And oh my gosh, I got it first pop. Okay, so see how nice and lined up that is? It's perfect. So I don't have to do it anymore, but you can save this little template piece and you can use this over and over and over and over. Now, if I want to stamp multiples of these, I just leave that template in place. I keep inking up and I just keep inserting my pieces over and over, and you can stamp them as many times as you want. But it's a handy little trick. I find this much easier than trying to line up a die afterwards. And I don't really enjoy taping the dies down all the time. And this just makes it super easy to do without having to do all of that. So I'm just going to take my chamois and just get the ink residue off of here. I'll clean up the stamp better afterwards, but for now I can do that and put it away. Okay. And then we're going to actually stack these sentiments up so that we get a little bit of dimension. Okay, so I'm just going to put my stamp over there so I don't lose it. So what we're going to do is we're going to apply glue to these 2 pieces here, and then we're going to layer them all up and end up with our finished die cut. But this is a great way to build up dimension for your sentiment. I love doing this. I think I have a little, there we go. I was going to say I have a little clog in my glue tip, but I squeezed it out. Okay, so now we're just going to take our top one and layer it on. Don't worry about lining it up yet. Stack that one up, and then you can just slide them around until they're all perfectly even on the edges, and you end up with your dimensional sentiment. Now, the one little trick that I like to use too is my glass board is magnetic, and I have these little pond magnets. I'm just going to put a magnet on there, and that's going to squish those layers together until that glue sets up, and it makes it really easy. So step 2 is going to do our little push button. And it just tells the recipient where to push on the card to activate that light. Now, I stamped my push right onto my card panel when I was finished, but I like having a dedicated button. So I decided I was going to create a button like this that I would adhere to my card, and then they would know to push on there. I just think it looks a little bit nicer. So to do that, I'm going to show you what I did. I had to look around my stash and find something that I could use for my push. Now, the stamp set that I'm using is this one here. It's from Tailored Expressions, and it's called I'm Interactive. And it has lots of words like pull, tear, shake, open, look inside, I move, pull here, scratch off, things like that. So Lawn Fawn also makes a similar set to this. I don't remember what it's called, but you can look in our Lawn Fawn section, and I know it's in stock as well. I've decided, rather than just using push, I'm going to use push here. And I had to find a die cut that was small enough that I could stamp push here on there, and that it wouldn't interfere a lot with my card when it's done. So just going to pick this up here. This is where it's going to go. And I think that just looks so much nicer. So guess where I found this? A lot of you probably already have it and you don't even know. So if you have the postage collage die, you get these little dies inside, and that little circle is the perfect size for the push here. So I love that it has like a little decorative edge and some stitching on it. Now I didn't put it in my MISTI and stamp it. I just did it freehand. So I use a small acrylic block. This is from Gina K Designs. It's their Comfort Block series, and this is the rectangle. I think it's important to use a block that is small enough that it fits in your hand well, and you're not, struggling to get it lined up on your die cut. So a smaller block comes in handy quite often for stuff like that. So I'm going to get my push here, pick it up with my block, and I'm going to go ahead and stamp that right in the center. Now, if I flub this up because I'm live, then it won't matter. I'm going to pull it down a little bit. Actually, I have to pull it way down so I can see. And I am just going to pop that off. So it turned out perfect. And it says push here. And then I will be able to add that to my card instead of just stamping right on the panel. Again, it's just a nice little touch. You don't have to do it that way, but it definitely does add a little bit of class, shall we say. And I already had the die, so why not? Okay, so next up, I think we are ready to start assembling our card. So I'm just going to clear off my desk, and I'll be back in a second. Okay, so we have all the elements ready. We've got our sentiment, we've got our push here button, we've got our wave cluster, we've got our sand, we've got our circle, our masked piece, our lighthouse, and our anchor. So the next step is going to be to put it all together, but also to install our Pearblossom Press One Light feature. So I'm just going to take a minute and kind of show you what is involved in doing that. And it's actually going to be kind of crazy how simple it is to do. I know I was intimidated by it. I had to watch a video and I was like, that's it. That's all you have to do. So your package will come with, well, they're sold in different combinations, a 2-pack, a 3-pack, and a 4 or 5-pack. I think we have the 2-packs in stock. But basically you get 2 of the mechanisms and 2 batteries. So you're going to just snap them apart like this. So that just separates them. Okay. And then you're going to install your battery. So you just take out your battery. I'm just going to grab one off of here. So they're just stuck on there with some sticky tape. And when you install your battery, you want to have the writing facing you. Okay. And then all you're going to do is just slide it in the little slot. Just push it all the way in. And that is it. Then you're just going to push this little button right down here. And you're going to see the light go off and on. So that's it. And then basically you're going to slide this in behind your project, wherever you want that light to shine, and keep track of where your push button is so that you know where to put the little push sticker. It's just going to kind of be in that vicinity. And then when they push down on it, it will activate the light. So basically what I'm going to do is I'm going to place my, my wave cluster kind of over top of my circle, and the sand will go along the bottom like so. I will have to trim off the sand. My lighthouse is going to get tucked in. My anchor is going to go on. And then once we get the panel done, we're going to go ahead and place the light on the back between the white layer and the blue layer. Okay. So that is how that's going to work. So I'm going to do the assembly off screen. It's really time consuming and I just don't want you to have to sit and watch it. But basically we're going to end up with the cluster like this. So I'm just going to hold this here for a second. And then if you wanted to take a screenshot or something like that, you can do that. But you can always come back, rewatch this video, pause it wherever you want to get a good look at how everything is pieced together. But I will be back in just a minute and then I'll show you how to install the light. Okay, I'm back. As you can see, I have my card panel all put together. A couple of little changes. So on this card here, I don't have the sand going all the way to the bottom, which I don't mind. But on this card, I have the sand going all the way to the bottom. So I do have to do a little ink blending on here. because I want it to be darker here and then lighten as it goes up. So I'll do that for you in just a moment. And the next thing is, I did add some stamped birds into my scene in the background. I did have a stamp in my stash from a while back. It is called Light the Way from Honeybee Stamps. And I noticed that I had some of these birds flying in the background. So I was able to stamp them in there, which I think is a nice addition as well. So set this aside. We're going to do a little bit of ink blending on the bottom here. And I'm going to use toffee ink. Let's get my stand over here. So toffee ink, and I'm going to use a sort of a more detailed blending brush to add that darker sand color to the bottom of my card. So this just gives a little bit more of an intense blend, and it is going to look darker when it first goes on, because when it dries, it gets a little bit lighter. So I'm sort of ink blending a little darker than I would like, knowing that it is going to lighten up a bit as it dries. But I think this really adds a lot to the way that the sand looks, rather than having it all one color. Okay, so let's turn this around and see how that looks. Ooh, beauty. Okay, so that's what that sand is going to look like. And again, it is going to dry a little bit lighter, so I'm not going to worry about that. I'm just going to clean off my desk a little bit here so we don't get brown ink on things we don't want brown ink on. And then we will get to the installation of the light. Okay, so my front panel is finished. I have my blue cardstock that is going to eventually go in behind here, but we want to put the light in between. Oh, sorry about my phone getting some messages, but that's okay. We'll just ignore those. So it's going to go in between. So this panel will actually be popped up because this does create a little bit of dimension. So I'm going to have to put some foam adhesive in there in order to accommodate that. But how I do it is the light is at the top here. So that's the part that you want to be right behind the light on your lighthouse. So when I'm clicking it, I can see the light and I can kind of move it around until I get it into the position that I want. So if I wanted the light to be behind here, you could even put some like vellum in there or something, but I've got this frame in the way, and so I'm not going to worry about that. I'm going to try to keep the light up to the top of the tower, which I think it looks really good there. Okay, and then I have to be mindful too of where my button is going to be when I place that as well. So I'm just kind of getting that in place there. Perfect. Okay, and once I kind of have it where I want it, I'm just going to flip it over, and I'm going to put a piece of tape across the back just to hold it, into place while I put my panel together. Okay, I mean, eventually it's going to get stuck in there. But I'm just going to test it again. Oops, no, it shifted, so we don't want to do that. So that's fine. We can definitely move it around. Oops, ripping my panel. That's okay. So this part is a little bit fiddly, but it's all right to take your time and really. Is that an adhesive piece on there? I'm just kind of wondering. No, it doesn't matter. Okay, so we're going to start again. I need another piece of tape. This one's going to be a bit bigger. Okay. So let's kind of get it where I want it. Oops, too low. Perfect. All right, and then I'm just going to put that piece of tape on there so that it doesn't move. Perfect, see? So now our light is in place. This is kind of taped on the back there and ready to go. Now I'm going to put my panel onto here with some foam tape. So again, I'm going to do that. Oh, maybe we should install this first. We can put our little push here button. So our push here button's about there. So I'm just going to put that right on there. Now I did end up using the frame that has a little bit of dimension. So I'm going to use some foam tape behind this just to give it a little bit of pop. It's going to rest on the frame a little bit too, but I want to be able to support it with a little bit of foam tape in behind there. So I'm just cutting a small piece, and we're going to see kind of where we have to position it. I'm going to cut it in half here. All right, so it's going to kind of sit kind of like that. Okay, so this part over here is going to need some support with foam tape. So I'm going to use both pieces. And then I'm going to put a little bit of glue on the edge of this as well. And wherever it sits on the frame, it will also adhere to that. That way it's not going to pop off and disappear. Just removing the backing. And I'm going to grab my tweezers just so I can get it exactly where I want it. Okay, so I'm just going to, again, with my finger, just kind of figure out where that is. And you want it to be straight too. You don't want it to be like, you know, cockeyed on your card. Well, that looks pretty good. I might slip another little piece of foam tape under there. Yep, I think I will. Oh, I've got a piece right here. That's why I don't throw away all these little pieces that I collect. And I'm just going to tuck it right in behind with my tweezers. And then that will support the top part of that push button as well. Awesome. So fun. Okay, so off screen, I'm just going to go ahead and put my foam tape on and attach my panel. And then I will put this onto my card base, and then we will finish up with the crystals, and we're done. All right, so now we're down to the final step of adding our gems. So I know kind of where I'm going to be placing them because I've already done the card once. So I'm just going to put some little dabs of glue down where I want to put my gems, and then we're just going to pick them up and plunk them on. All right, so here we go. I'm going to actually expose both of the ends. Whoops, hit my mic. Sorry about that. All right, so we're going to come in with a bigger kind of crystal there, and then a small one. My goodness, somebody wants to talk to me. It happens just like alive. Okay, and then there we go. So I'm just going to straighten this one out a little. There we go. All righty. So there is our finished card featuring this amazing lighthouse that you can get for free while quantities last over on the Two Scrapbook Friends website. There, if you go to the online store, there's a little blurb right at the very top with all the information in there. And the sample includes the one light from Pearblossom Press. So I hope you love the inspiration we provided, and I hope that we will see you again soon. Oops, I almost forgot. I wanted to share just a couple of slides showing you some inspiration from the Waffle Flower website, just showing you other ways that you can use the lighthouse. So I'll just quickly flip through those here so you can see. There is the lighthouse done in different colors. So that's the red and white with black accents. There is a die that comes with it that does that beam of light that shoots out the side, which is really cool. This is a really beautiful one as well. Completely different tones. Not that you would see a lighthouse that looks like this very often, but it features some other products that are available from Waffle Flower as well. So definitely go check out the Waffle Flower section of our website, because you're going to see lots of really cool things that you can use with your lighthouse die. And there it is with that lovely sea shell background again, and another color combination that works nicely with the lighthouse. This is my favorite one from their design team. One of the sentiments that comes in that stamp set that I used for the Shine Bright, it says, "Love you to the lighthouse and back." So that is a really cool one that you can use. And you can see both of those beams of light are being used at the top of the lighthouse for accents as well. And here's one that they've combined with the postage collage that you can get with the lighthouse elements, which is also another really cool thing. So that is where those postage stamps come from. And then you can see the lighthouse on the side. And then our last sample is this one here. And again, it's using that great sentiment that says "Love you to the lighthouse and back." And I love the pastel colors that this designer used to decorate the lighthouse. All right, now I'm really done, and we hope to see you again soon.